Hello and welcome to the Roll and Reflect podcast, the podcast where we bring you insights from behind the tabletop and beyond the box. I'm one of your hosts, Devon.
And I'm Mark.
And we have a very special guest by the name of Austin from Ivy Studios, who wants to say hi to everyone right now.
He's so excited.
I was going to say, and I don't know if I'm supposed to introduce myself.
I love it.
Well, welcome,
Sorry.
Austin.
Thank you. Thank you for introducing me. I feel awful. I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for having me on, friends.
Yeah, we've got a lot of exciting things to talk about with Austin and Ivy Studios. But first, if people don't know who you are, please give us a little bit of background of how you got into this industry, who you are, and what Ivy Studios is all about.
It seems like it's been a really long time, but it has not. The pandemic made it feel a lot longer. But I remember being at the Gen Con in 2019 and reaching out to a guy named Mr. Mark Streed and asked him if he'd look at a prototype that I had that I was hoping to hire Dice Tower for, and that was for Moonrakers. And Moonrakers at the time was in a landscape box instead of a profile box, and it was a little, deck builder. And Mark didn't know me from Adam or anyone else, and I was really lucky to sit down with him, and I really appreciated that sit down because that was like the first time I had met with like industry people in person. Like Gen Con was like the first time I got exposed to the industry of board games. And since then we've launched Veiled Fate, Mythic Mischief, Fractured Sky, another Moonrakers game, Moon Rollers. Gosh.
And beyond that, we turned into fantastic friends. So,
friends. And that's been a blast to have that friendship grow. And so I work at Ivy Studio. I'm the head of games at Ivy Studio. I've done a bunch of different things while there, everything from customer service to international logistics to warehouse management to anything, game creation. I'm settling into my role as a game designer first and foremost, and kind of just keeping my pulse on the industry and what people are looking for and planning components and managing the process of creating games.
You're one of the big examples that I use when I talk to new publishers. You're like the go-to for me when I talk to them, and I say, we've been working on this for like a month, and we started talking to people. A month? So let me tell you a story about Ivy Studio. For their first game, they literally spent a year marketing this game.
Yeah,
probably too long. Don't follow our example in that. Yeah,
I think it's awesome.
Took my sweet time trying to figure that out. But
it was great because it started to be this thing where people were like, oh yeah, I heard about that. I saw a banner ad. It really became this.
I have a new standard for that actually. Galactic Cruise is the standard for me.
They are.
For first time launch. I think that
amazing as well.
They spent 3 years refining that, going to cons. I saw them for the first time at a con like a year and a half before their launch. I don't know. I think those guys are incredible. They're also from Tennessee. Well, one's from Canada, but two of them are from Tennessee. Mm-hmm. So represent Tennessee. I'm in Tennessee. I'm in Nashville. So,
and it's also a fantastic game. I mean,
Kingston Key did a great job. I mean, really. Sorry. So as far as like first time launch, we're definitely not the only people doing it right.
No,
Kingston Key's incredible. I appreciate you, Mark, for calling us out. That is very nice of you.
Yeah, we will definitely get Kingston Key on here because them and I launched at the same time into the industry. So I've known TK was actually the first guy I met. And we play tested each other's games. And from there, it's been history. So I've been following them from the very beginning. And everyone I talk to, I tout them for being, like you said, the standard. They have done everything exactly the way we're supposed to, as first time indie creators. And so, we have an entire episode will be dedicated to just that and starting and launching as an indie creator.
I'm glad I could be the teaser for that episode.
Yes.
I love it. Lay down the groundwork for that episode.
We have a reflection question. I had a really good one I think I want us to answer. So at Ivy Studios, your motto for a while has been premium with a purpose for quite some time, right?
It started as premium. Premium was our standard, and we're converting it to premium with a purpose,
With that, how do you think premium components in board games enhance the overall gaming experience? And why do you think they're becoming increasingly more important to players and collectors? Mark, I'll let you go first here with that.
Oh, because I love this.
You do love it.
For me, it's all about the tactile experience. Cubes and flat tokens are so long ago, I feel like. You know what I mean? I love when games have, obviously miniatures are cool, but I want more than that. I want like tokens that look like the thing that you're doing. Like if it's a barrel of fuel, I want it to be a barrel of fuel, or a toxic waste dump or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. Whatever it is. And I love that with IV, everything you do is along those lines. You're always pushing well, do this little cool token or this, and just making every aspect of the game, from just the flat design of the board to something next level. And that's what I just love about. And in gaming in general, I want all my games to be, so to say, just given the shininess that I can get any extra components for the next level upgrades. Absolutely.
Mark, for me, I remember when it came out, this was like the standard for you, and I agree. You loved Return to the Dark Tower.
Oh yeah.
And I remember that was just like living on your table.
Yep.
And that is such a good example of that tactile experience. It's when the components really help the game come to life. They're expensive. It's not cheap.
They are.
But it's not just collector's item that you're not going to interact with, right? It's something that you're living an experience with. And I really like that. And I think that is a really good standard of
and like with quality. A lot of your games, and even with the new one, Brink, the different spaceships for the different factions look vastly different. And you actually have just your own set of components that are just for you, which is so cool.
Yeah. Fractured Sky is the one where it's like, the magnets meeting the custom ships.
So cool.
Was like the biggest fun factor for me ever in a game. That I would say even like almost like toy level factor.
Yes, absolutely.
And I've played other games by other companies. My favorite personal one that I bring up all the time is the common one, Foundations of Rome. I love the experience of playing that game. Right, I love the grandiosity of it. I love the final board look. When you're interacting with the components, where they're not just some massive miniature sitting on a table that kind of interacts with you, when it's like an actual piece that you're playing with, I can't have it be nice enough. Like it. Right. Well, I'll take that back. If someone started gold plating stuff, I'm not bothered. Sure. But, platinum plating, like something like this. We just did a mini that has like a platinum sheen on it.
So cool.
And this is like a full metal piece. I originally was like, I don't know how I feel about that. And then we got it. It's not actually platinum. That would be too expensive. But that kind of effect, I was like, I actually really like this. So,
like the Fractured Sky thing, just the satisfying pop when you grab the magnet, right? That kind of thing, along with other games where you, and especially again in Brink, which we'll talk more about, but you have components that attach to the pieces and things like that. Again, that tactile experience is so high. Yeah, I love it.
I think with the launch of like Kickstarter and crowdfunding campaigns, it's really boomed. And they're really focusing on the importance of deluxeified, and that's a totally different episode. We'll talk about deluxeified and undeluxeified, but it's like when you think about the tactile experience and you go onto Kickstarter, it's usually like, oh, let's make this cardboard piece, turn it into something that you just want to toss around and play with outside of gaming. You just sit there and mess with it, and so I think that's a huge important factor to bring up.
I had to restrain myself when we played Brink from doing like flying the ships around. Yeah.
So, Devon, you brought up a really important point for me, and something that we try to use as like an education platform. We recently have had people be like, hey, why do you use crowdfunding? Why do you use Kickstarter? Why do you use whatever? There's a lot of reasons to use it, both financial and community and
marketing,
whatever. But marketing, one of the main reasons goes back to this piece that we just did for a Veiled Fate campaign. It was this city center board that was really like this 3D piece that kind of nests in and it holds cards really nicely and everything else. And had I just run a normal pre-order or just like gone direct to market with it, I would have had to have placed the order way in advance, way further than I would for crowdfunding. And the team wasn't really sold on the idea as a product, how successful it would be. We loved it, but we didn't know how much other people would love it. And had I had to order that for retail, I probably would have bought 500 to 1,000. 500 to 1,000 of them, the retail price would have needed to have been somewhere between $50 and $65. They would have been pretty expensive for backers. I only would have had 500 to 1,000 to sell. And the factory wouldn't have been super happy because they would have been, not a huge order number for them. Mm-hmm. Well, because we did it on crowdfunding, we took a chance. I made it cheaper than it should have been. I think we sold it at $35. And that was a huge risk. If we had only sold 500, we would have barely covered the cost of making them. Like it would have been bad. But we sold 3,500, I think by the end, 4,000 of them.
Yeah. Wow.
And that brought the price perfectly into line to where it should have been. I was able to like talk to the factory and be like, hey, like we're not able to do this. if it hadn't have sold well, we could have been like, hey guys, like we're not able to make this, we got to backpedal, like whatever. But like the fact that it was on the crowdfunding campaign and we were able to get the support and the excitement where you can invest in high quality deluxe stuff and be rewarded on it by spending $35 instead of $65, because the price goes up after that. Like we're not selling that at $35 ever again.
Sure.
It was an amazing time to be able to deluxify because of being on crowdfunding.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's like for publishers, it's the ultimate push your luck game.
It is.
It really is.
It's terrifying sometimes.
Yeah.
Because eventually, you pull that last, what are those called in Quacks of Quedlinburg, the little white tokens.
Yes.
Bubbles or something.
It's like a fire snapper, something like that. I can't remember what it's called. But eventually you pull that last one out of the bag. That's always my fear. That's my job at IV. Push us as far as long as possible until we have a
Don't break 7.
Don't break 7.
That's great insights, because I think that's really important to know, especially from a publisher side. It's our listeners are not necessarily all publishers, and so it's good to know that there are those buttons being pushed. It is a huge risk to go on Kickstarter, but it's also super rewarding in the end, in the long in the final product, when you can do things like that make it worthwhile. Yep. So let's go ahead and let's talk about our main topic today. We just came back. When you guys are listening, it's been a couple weeks ago. We were at Origins Game Fair in Columbus, and this was my first time ever at Origins. Very interesting, and I just want to give a little recap of our experience going down the line here. For me, overall, it was really different because I worked for a distribution company as opposed to a publisher this time, and so I worked with Bridge Distribution. It was much different than working for a publisher, like it's just a one-off, because I had to know all of the games on the shelf. And most of the games on the shelf I've never played. So a lot of it was me reading the backs of the boxes and just like, boom, being able to sell really quick and sell an idea and get that sales out there. So it was really fascinating to me to kind of not have to focus on one game and just kind of pivot and adapt to where I needed to go. It was really fun. I had a lot of fun there, and the team was really cool. For me with Origins, I thought it was much smaller than I expected. I definitely thought it would be bigger, but I kind of enjoyed it because it was more personal, and I was able to really talk to these publishers and just meet with people and not have to like squirm around like Gen Con. Overall, I really enjoyed my experience, and I hope Bridge enjoyed me being there, and I hope to go back again next year. So what did you guys think about it?
I have been to Origins 3 times, twice as a exhibiting publisher, and third time I was mostly there to promote Brink. I think Origins is wonderful. I think that it is a very... on your same thread, Devon, I think it's a relaxing con compared to Gen Con. Mm-hmm. Now, this trip, I had not slept the night before I got there because I was working on something that happened.
I love that story, by the way.
And I lost my voice the first day, and I'm still recovering from that, and it's been a week. And so it has been a little bit different, not as relaxing of an experience as it has been in the past. But Derek Funkhauser once described it as Origins is for publishers to engage with each other and have fun and do stuff. And Gen Con is to do business.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
And not to say that business doesn't happen at Origins, but right. Origins is a little bit more relaxed in that way. Origins has had a drop-off in the amount of publishers that are there. Yeah, and I don't know if that will continue. The publishers that were there did very well from what I know. Arcane Wonders and All Play both reported doing very well there. I know that Chip Theory was there. I don't know if they did well. They didn't have a huge booth presence there, and it might not be their Gen Con, their crowd's definitely at Gen Con. I don't know if their crowd's at Origins, but they said that they broke some like game checkout records, and some other stuff. So I wonder if Origins is kind of transitioning from a publisher exhibition con to more of a gameplay con. And that might be a healthy transition. I don't know. I don't know too many people that do like releases at Origins or releases at other places. Like that's usually Essen and Gen Con. And that could change in, just a year's time. Who knows? I'm not immediately like, I have to have a booth there next year. I might. It might be another thing where I go by myself. So I'm not sure. But I really enjoyed it. My friends were there. I got to play Brink a bunch. I got to play other games a bunch. So it was fun.
Yeah. So I think they're really trying to find their footing. Yep. They're trying to do some new things. I like the fact that the hall is like medium sized, right? You can actually get around and then you have plenty of time to go play stuff, because at Gen Con, I never get to play stuff. It just literally here, play around, see it. That's it. Okay. Thanks. But here I actually got to play whole games. It was just phenomenal.
Wow.
And I actually, the main reason I went was because there was a handful of prototypes that I need to play for previews, Brink being one of them. So
So
that was my main goal. Yeah, I know, right? My main goal is to get a play and a teach from the designers and publishers, because it's so much better for me when I sit down with the rule book and be like, oh yeah, I remember this, so that's the main reason. But also I love the fact that Origins is trying to push this envelope to do something new and different, and kind of like a Comic-Con, have some really high-end special guests.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting to see how well that pans out for them, because being this was the first year, those guests were not super busy, but they still had people showing up and saying hey and getting photos and all that. But I thought that was an interesting move, because it's something like other cons have shied away from doing. And I think that this could potentially, having a con where you get to play games and see celebrities, some of your favorite, and ones that are maybe more into the gaming world, might be a really good mix that you don't really see at other cons. So it's interesting. And for me, personally, I have become friends with Kevin Sussman since 2020. He followed me and we became friends, and we've done like Codenames Live together. So it was really fun to hang out with Kevin and get to do some really fun stuff. So, and we were able to hook him up with some fun games that he'd been looking for. So, and I think that's an interesting move for Origins. And I think the board is just really trying to do something new and different. And I like the folks that are on the board, and just going to be interesting to see how the con now evolves, moving in this type of direction.
I got to hang out with the Kinson Key guys a lot at Origins, and I played Galactic Cruise, they played Brink, and we went out to dinner, and it was a really good time. And I think those are the reasons that I want to be at Origins, is connect with friends and maybe have a small booth. I'm not going to blow the doors off and try to have a 20 by 30 booth. And
yeah, definitely not. I would love to see some like you and other bigger publishers come back though, and just make it. I don't want it to be another Gen Con, but I like this direction of making it a more relaxed con, so to say, that still has a decent number of like vendors and things, because like BGG is a gamers type of con, and so is Dice Tower West and so forth. But I like the fact that Origins is kind of a mix of Gen Con. It just gives you that more relaxed feel, but still you have some spectacle, which I love.
Yeah, so, and I think what you really said there was, I love that idea of making it unique and where you bringing special guests in. Like Austin said earlier, it's very much, it looks like it might be transitioning to a more of a gameplay con. And if that's the case, the special guests really make sense, right? Because it's all these big wigs that play board games now. And then, maybe that means less board game booths, because it's more about the experience of meeting these people and playing games. And yeah, they broke the records on the checkouts, which is awesome. But I've noticed like a lot of, there was like Games Workshop and Lucky Duck and whatnot were not there. And then there was a lot more dice booths and a lot more just accessory based booths. And, I don't necessarily want to see that continue. Like, it was nice, but there's such thing as saturation, and I don't want there to be too many dice booths, because then it's like,
although, can you have too many dice? I don't know about that.
I will answer yes to that. Probably against my better judgment.
Mark, we had on Mythic Mischief dice pattern that was very specific. You had to be able to tick it up 1, 2, 3, 4 or 1, 2, 3, 0. And our proofs came back and they were correct, but the mass production copy came back, the one that they're actually about to start assembling, and the factory had scrambled the dice to a standard D6 pattern.
Oh no!
And they had made 450,000. So the answer is yes, you can have dice.
Yes, you can have to. That is a valid yes.
Because they asked us if we wanted 450,000 misprinted dice, and we said no.
Oh,
we do
wow.
Not.
That's
man.
Well, you heard it here first. That's very interesting.
That's crazy.
I think it's well known that we use Panda. Panda fixed that problem so fast.
Good.
And it was like a testament to why we work with Panda, because I think it was like the delivery was a week or two later than intended. They fixed it that fast that they were able to make them all again and repack them. It was pretty impressive.
Wow. Within 2 weeks.
That's pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah.
And it's good you caught it before they shipped everything.
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh, I almost didn't, because I almost did check it because it was right the first time. So why, why would that have changed? Anyway.
Yeah.
So that was a lucky catch.
Yeah. So what kind of games were, as we were walking around, what kind of games were you guys excited to see? I talked with Kurt from Smirk and Dagger, and I got to see Hi-Fi, the new like record game, and that looked amazing.
Looks so cool.
it was super cool. And he
Again,
said the prototype was
experience, right?
Yeah, he said the prototype was literally like a record player that he got sent, and it actually looked very similar to what he had. And so that was one cool. I got a demo from him, and it was awesome. Yep. And then I also saw To Glory from Vesuvius Media. They always have a great fun time over there, and watching these pirate ships actually fling stuff over in a dexterity game. That was really interesting to me as well. So those were the two I was excited about.
Yeah, so one I wasn't even on my radar was Mutton Bustin' from 25th Century Game. It's this crazy, and I don't typically like party games per se, but even though this one has some zany stuff you have to do as the sheep, everyone is simultaneously rolling dice, and it's this frantic run to get points. As well, the other players are trying to prevent you from getting points by getting enough sheep on their dice to block you, right? So, and along the way, there's actions on your card, like you have to yell out things like replace sheep in the name of a movie, right? So it was like Sheep Wars or something like that.
Sheep Wars. That's fun.
So, and typically I don't like that kind of, but I love just the frantic nature of the game. It was so fun. And then I did a preview for this one, but Adventure Party from Smirk and Dagger. It is like RPG light and also a great game for like teaching folks who have never played RPGs how to interact with that world. But it's also a party game, and it just is really a really neat game. And you have like the premise on the cards, what you're going to be doing, and then you have to roll dice, and then everyone has to guess how close, based on your story, what your dice roll was, which is a really interesting aspect. Kevin and I sat down for a demo because I wanted to show him, because it seems like an actor's game, right? Yep. So he loved it, and we all guessed. Kevin and I guessed the 18. That was the roll, and it was just perfect.
That's
based
awesome.
on Kurt's story from Smirk and Dagger. So I love that. It's just really a neat that you can literally jump into like the middle of an RPG campaign is really what it feels like. All kinds of gear and things you can get and reference in your stories and so forth. So,
I love that game. I saw it being played at an Unpub in Baltimore like a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. And I was like, oh man, I can't wait for this to come out. So I've just been waiting for that game to come out. I bought it recently.
Nice.
It's a really good one. I'm sorry. I've been trying to figure out the name of a game because
no worries.
So I pick up my computer trying to figure it out. Have you guys played the soccer dexterity game?
Bino or
Origins?
I've not played it, but I know of it. Yes.
Okay, so one of my friends bought one, and I was like, I'll try it. Like, how fun could it be? Like, it can't be as good as like foosball or whatever. It was a blast.
It's pretty good.
It was a blast. I love Crokinole, and so as far as like dexterity games go, this is probably up there with Crokinole for me. And so it was really cool. I love that there's like rules where it's just like you get a yellow card, like can't do that. It just like feels like soccer, and it's like red card, like that's a major rules violation. But when that happens, you have to take like pigs out in front of your goal.
That's cool.
And so it makes it easier for the other team to score. And so you're like really trying not to like mess up on the rules. I've never played a game that makes it easier for your opponent to win when you mess up on the rules. And that's fun. That has like extremely complex rules. And like every time you mess up, the other team gets a point. Like that's the whole way you score points. It's like a party game.
Oh man, it looks so fun. I mean, I've seen,
I passed by my buddy Bob, and I don't know if that's the same friend as you, but Bob, different. He was playing, and I was just like, I kept passing it. He's like, dude, you gotta check this out, and I'm like, okay, I hear that a lot. It's like, you gotta check this out. And then I watched him, play a couple times, and that when that happened, when you had to remove the peg, I was like, that's genius. I love that aspect of it.
That's very
and it looked fun. I used to play soccer, and so it was like, okay, I have some nostalgia there as well. So
that's awesome.
If Brink goes well, I'm buying a custom IV board for the office. So
nice.
We'll see.
That's awesome. So of the prototypes I played, they were Brink, obviously, which we'll talk more about, but Boom Patrol, which is Smirk and Dagger, which feels like old story or old school tank on the Atari. So you're moving tanks around, and you have this open field. There is not really a ruler, but really more of a guide about where you're aiming and stuff. And if you run into like buildings, what you reveal by doing so. If you take out the middle square, it's pretty funny because it explodes and all this gold starts flying out. And
That's sweet.
So that was pretty fun, and I can't wait to do the preview for that. And then I did 20 Strong Tanglewoods, which is Manny Trimbly's world. So 3 new decks for 20 Strong. So I'm excited about that one.
Nice.
And Jim's, I'm gonna say this name wrong.
Iridecia.
Yes, thank you, Jim's Iridecia. So it was really good. So all of these games, and this is a neat thing about prototypes in general. Lately, I've been pleasantly surprised with the games I've been getting, just how engaging and fun they are. So yeah.
With the number of games that come out and the number of people trying to enter the space, the bar gets raised every year. Yep. There's more and more people competing for the same, but luckily growing group of people buying games. And so, yeah, it's definitely something where you feel the pressure as a publisher to make sure those prototypes are good. And
yeah, for sure.
And make sure that it's something that'll be engaging. So,
but that leads us to Brink. What is Brink?
Yeah.
Tell us more about it. What's your inspiration?
Yeah, this one I would say probably had one of the hardest development cycles we've ever done. It changed more in the process than any other game I think we've made. And so just real quick, if you don't know anything about Brink is in the same universe as our first game, Moonrakers, but it is not a deck builder. It is a game where you are playing the whole life cycle of the Moonrakers from when they have very little control over the universe to like you're expanding by exploring hexes, and you're moving further and further out from the center, and you're getting more options for worker placement. So it's a really tight action selection, action economy game. You're only getting 3 placements per turn, and you get 3 rounds. Sorry, 3 placements a round, and you get 3 rounds. So it's a total of 9 placements. But you have big ships that take lots of actions and little ships that take 1 action, and so you're trying to plan that out in a really good way. Overall, it feels like a political intrigue kind of struggle type game where you're trying to get power to score with by multiplying it by a big vote that happens at the end of a round. And I think that leads to some really big culminating moments of like, oh, this is intense. I don't know how this is going to go. And I love that in games. There's negotiation in it. There's exploration, like I said, but overall it's a worker placement action selection game. So it is a game, like I said, that took a long time to get there. It started off very different. It was originally a game called Council, with an emphasis on cow. It was supposed to be a game about the buying and selling of cows.
Oh, goodness.
The like manipulation of that. And so what came across from that was you were voting on policies and you were like tucking in riders on things. So it's like, hey, there's this big policy that you want to go this way. I'm going to tuck in a little rider that's going to give me points or give me an advantage in some way, but you're still going to vote with me because you need this to go this way. And that was most of the game direction. And we realized we really liked that rider part, but the rest of it didn't quite fit in. And so we brought it to space at that point, and we had it as a worker placement game, but a truer sense of worker placement. Not like huge hexes and places to place, but like there's a zone you can place there, it's blocked out kind of thing. And in the end, it played very, very differently from, but kind of felt like Dune Imperium. And we were like, I don't think we want to release this, even though this is super duper fun. And I think we will go back to that version of the game and make a new game from that. But we transitioned it pretty hard to be what it is today and slowly fell more and more in love with it. And now I think it's all of the 3 designers or 2 of the 3 designers' favorite game we've ever made. Wow. And so we're definitely in love with it at this point and continuing to refine it. We didn't have an embargo. We usually do an embargo up until launch. And so reviews are already coming out, and I'm really, really happy that they've been really positive so far. So that's been fun to see. And it gives me a little bit less pressure or like stress about launch day, if that makes sense. I guess I'd be feeling the inverse if the scores were really bad. I'd be way more stressed about launch day. But yeah, that's Brink in a nutshell. Did I miss anything obvious?
No, I think you pretty much touched all the main things, but I'm just going to like throw out my favorite aspect of Brink, because Mark and I got to jump into a few rounds of the game here at Origins. And one thing I loved about it was I love negotiation. I play a lot of Magic Commander, and there's all negotiation for the most part, when you're starting to fight. And so I really liked how in this game, compared to Moonrakers, there was a lot lighter of negotiation than in Moonrakers. In Moonrakers, you're always trying to negotiate. But in this one, there was just very key moments when it was just like, oh, you have these cubes or whatever. I need this purple for green or whatever. And it was just such a nice payoff, because I know with my group, they don't love negotiation games. And so Moonrakers was a tough sell for them because right. all of in. But this one, I think I can probably get them to that space because it was just like so small that the decisions more on your actions meant way more than in our game than the negotiation power.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing with that too is the fact that even if you don't like negotiation, this is an integral part to you getting the right cubes you need.
Exactly.
And it's more about that really than a negotiation type game. Obviously you have to negotiate, hey, I got 2 of these for 1 of these. But in general though, it feels like it doesn't feel like an add-on or anything, right? It feels like a necessary part of the game. Absolutely. Right. So I like that you are engaged. You're like, well, I guess a lot of games you're like, well, I guess I could do that. But this feels like, oh, I can't wait to do this because we'll see what I end up with,
Negotiation went through a lot of iterations because me, Zach, and Max, the 3 designers, love negotiating. We love negotiating with each other. So in our playtest, it's like, oh, this is going super smooth. Let's just get this out to public playtesting. Public playtesting, they just siloed down. They didn't care about them. Or they were trading 1 cube for 1 cube. We had this thing we have it still, called favors in the game.
Right.
But favors were round based at first. You just had to get rid of them by the end of the round. And so what ended up happening is people would wait until they had the same cube in front of them, and then they would just exchange it 1 for 1. And we're like, no, that is not what we're trying to facilitate. Like there's no point in trading at that point. And so you get these cubes that you're incentivized to trade to get something out of, because otherwise you're just going to put them back in the tray. And I think that's turned out really well because it's low risk in some ways negotiation for a person that doesn't feel like they're good at negotiating. If I get anything for these cubes, it's a positive for me. I don't have to feel like I've lost something by trading these away.
Yeah.
And so both sides can feel like they have a win-win in a little bit of a less intense way, in my opinion, because it's like, these are worthless to me, they're worth something to you, and what you have is worth something to me. And so it helps show the obvious need for the trade, if that makes sense.
The thing too is that I love that this is like the 3rd game in the Moodrakers world, right? So, or universe, so to say. And obviously you weren't really intending that when you had the cow thing going, but now that you have 3, are you already like, oh, what else can we do in this universe?
Oh, man, I'm probably not supposed to talk about plans.
We won't tell anyone.
I'll jump ahead. Zach really wants to explore other mediums than just board games. There's a lot that could be leading toward. It could be other types of games. It could be other types of. But the idea is to keep growing this universe and keep telling stories within this universe. Brink Terminal is a really huge part of that. Yeah. If I haven't told you guys about that, it's basically a text-based adventure game, murder mystery. So you're progressing the story forward by typing in prompts into a terminal, basically. And I think it's really, really fun. It grows as you play it. It starts off just like typing in words, and it grows from there. I can't quite talk about it without ruining the surprise.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then Terminal, we always try to invest in like one big thing, whether it's like Luminor with Titan or Veiled Fate has quite a few big story like puzzles. But this one is going to be even more special because unlocks on the page tie into this game, and they haven't. The game's been running for months. But at the end of the game, there's some like key benchmarks that like the people playing it will have to hit in order to unlock like new cards, community packs, things like that. And I'm really excited about that. And I think we have thousands of unique usernames at this point. I don't know how many people have played it yet, but it's many thousands. Thousands is misleading. It's less than 10,000, but it's definitely more than 2.
Thousands.
It's somewhere between 2 and 10. I don't want to speak to where it is.
Nice, that's awesome.
Because I can't remember. But
yeah, I need to check this out.
It's super, super fun. Jason EasyCat, I don't know if you follow him on TikTok or anything else, but he has a video coming out about it possibly today.
Cool.
So if you want to learn a little bit about it, I'd highly recommend going to his channel and checking that out. Kind of lost touch of what I was going to say. I did want to touch on the 2-player mode, if I could.
Yes.
Because it's something that y'all didn't get to see while we were at Origins. But the 2-player mode Brink is the best 2-player mode of any of our games except for Mythic Mischief. Mythic Mischief obviously is a 2-player game, so it would be hard to beat that. But I was really, really pleased that Rado decided to cover Brink because I knew that the 2-player mode was so good. And he has a video coming out talking about playing it with one other person, Alex, and then his wife. That gelled with them, and I was really, really pleased to see that because I wanted this 2-player mode to be talked about because normally it's a negotiation game. People are gonna be like 2 players. I usually play 2 players. I don't want to play that. And there's a really, really simple bag building thing that happens where it's like there's a bag at the center of the board called the rival bag that wants to trade with you. And it has parameters for what you can trade and what you can get each round. But at the end of the round, it votes in the end vote with the cubes that are in the bag. So I will try to put cubes in the bag that are the color that I want to win the vote. And so I'm not only trading, but I'm seeding that bag with the things. And there's almost no upkeep, right? Like it's not moving ships around the board. Yeah. It's not doing anything. It's just able to influence the end vote. So it's not just us versus each other. And it's able to provide a trading partner for when we don't want to trade with each other. But the cool. way that it does it also incentivizes us to still trade with each other because it's really hard to get the purple cubes apart from trading with other players.
Yeah,
right.
And the bag doesn't have the best deal. It just has a deal. And so for some of the cubes that you get, the best deal is still going to be with the other player. I'm really, really happy with it. And it's much shorter of a game, obviously. Me and Max should play in 40 minutes at 2 players, which playing a game like Brink, it's hard to get that under an hour. And so if you have a sighted person, it's something you can snap through quickly.
Yeah, that's great because my wife and I love Moonrakers at 2. We really only get to play at 2, and so I need those games to have really good 2-player modes. So it's good to hear that this is also one of those that's going to jive. Yeah,
so Moonraker's Mercenary deck is the 2-player mode that y'all use, and I think it's great. It definitely is not widely loved as far as a 2-player mode. Like, not everyone's like, yeah, the Mercenary deck's great because it has upkeep. You have to shuffle the cards, you have to flip them out, you have to do all this stuff, and it's just like another thing you are doing. Brink, it's just, there's not that. The only upkeep is I take 4 cubes out at the end right, of each round. Like, there's just no upkeep. So it's very seamless compared to the rest of the game. No solo mode. People, every time I release a game without a solo mode, people come and tell me, hey, I need a solo mode to back the game. That's fine. If you're a solo mode player and that's how you like to play the games, I don't think you're going to like Brink anyway.
Yep.
And I don't want to force a solo mode into it that you're going to say, I bought this for the solo mode and I didn't like it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Running into that same problem right now.
A lot of that going on. Yeah, right.
I want to touch just briefly, before we go into the Beyond, I want to touch about some key lessons. Let's go back into the publisher mindset. So what, from Moonrakers to this project, what key lessons have you learned from publishing your first game to now, and how have they shaped your approach to this new project?
Oh, man. I'll give a few, yeah, for sure. So nothing will always ever pan out schedule-wise that you think it will. There's always something, whether it's a pandemic or a strike or something, a boat sinking, something will go wrong. So you need to give yourself grace in your scheduling. And at the same time, you also need to do everything in your power to prepare and cut time out in other places in order to still hit your deadlines, right? Like Ivy has a pretty strict, that better be delivered within a year policy. Now, are we going to miss that eventually? We are. Have we missed it recently? Depends on your definition. The English copies for Fractured Sky, for instance, we crowdfunded that, and like most of those games delivered in March and April. I think there was like 100 that delivered after the deadline, right? So, and there's just always going to be stragglers. There's always going to be problems. To give you an example, this is a really this is a terrible story. Hopefully it never happens to anyone watching. But for the people that aren't publishers, they'll just find it funny. Our warehouse in Europe trying to new software, and they, for the company line, put Ivy Studio. But what they'd actually done was applied Ivy Studio to every address in the system. And so it was Hans Grubeck in somewhere, Germany, Ivy Studio.
Oh, no.
Which isn't that big of a deal in America because you'd still get it delivered.
Right.
But when it went through customs, they relabeled it. And when they relabeled it, they got rid of Hans Grubeck and they just put Ivy Studio. And so people could not get their games.
Yeah.
Because they could not prove that they worked at Ivy Studio. Newsflash, because they did. And that was something that my team didn't have any control over or even any knowledge of, other than picking that partner in the first place.
Sure.
The problem is we had just picked that partner because the last partner didn't use the right pricing on boxes. And so they all got taken out of their boxes at customs and put new custom boxes with no packing. And so our games are being delivered with no wrapping around them.
Oh my
gosh.
And
so we've switched warehouses because of that problem. I'm getting way too in the weeds. But your brand is going to be affected by things that you don't have direct control over, whether that's someone messing something up and something be delivered, and you're going to lose fans because of that. And that hurts, and that doesn't feel fair. And how you react to that as a company is really important. and trying to be as understanding as possible and trying to fix it whenever there's a problem. But just, you're going to have to prepare for the unexpected. And that's not just with time, that's also with money. You cannot cut your margins too close or you will fail as a company. Jamie from Stonemaier has a really wonderful blog about how in his early days of crowdfunding, he almost added a metal coin, a metal coin add-on for, I don't know what this was actually.
And it almost tore him apart.
He said that if he had hit that stretch goal, which they missed by like $10,000, he is not sure he would have had any money left over after fulfillment. That might have affected him making Gate. Could you imagine if he didn't go on to make Scythe? If he didn't go on to make Wingspan? Like, how different would our industry be if Stonemaier had stopped at viticulture? And like, you have to make sure that you are not listening to outside influence that is telling you your game is too expensive. I want it to be this way. You have to have a vision for your product. You have to put safety check marks in there that make sure that you can afford problems that are going to come up, because I guarantee you they're going to come up. And you have to choose who you want to be. And that was something that we had to do really early, because people were like, you need to make a version of Moonrakers without the metal coins. It'll be more affordable and people will buy it. And the truth is they're right. We could have made a cheaper version of Moonrakers.
Sure.
But I don't think the Ivy Studios brand would be where it is today if we didn't have that kind of premium with a purpose messaging from the beginning. Because our premium isn't just, to sit there and look pretty. We want you to interact and feel and be brought into the worlds that we're creating, and using the tools of premium products to do that. Like, Fractured Sky doesn't need magnets. It just doesn't. You can have a token and you can flip it over. In fact, that's what the retail edition is. And people begged us for that edition. It sold barely any. 500 of those sold compared to 10,000 other versions of Fractured Sky at this point. And so did we need to do that? Who knows? But so like deciding, so I think my three things, I've kind of danced around. 3 things are: decide the kind of company you want to be. IV wanted to make games that we wanted to play. And I love games like Foundations of Rome. I love games with the table presence of things like Return to the Dark Tower. I love big, fun experiences where I'm engaging tactily with very fun pieces. That's the kind of company IV wants to be. We want to have weird, creepy Hadria minis that are moving around the board, and we want to have metal versions of stuff. Like, we want to have cool feeling experiences. And we're not the only company that's like that. But that's who we decided to be early on, and that's why every game of Moonrakers has metal coins. Will that change 10 years from now when we eventually want to do a Target run of Moonrakers? Maybe. I have no idea. So decide who you want to be and kind of stick to that, and let that influence your choices. 2, give yourself space to handle financial and scheduling problems. But then when you mess up, own up to it and do everything you can to make it right with the customer. Because every company messes up. If you're in your comment section telling your people you're wrong, like, our company's great, like, you had a bad experience, but that's just you, like, we're not helping you. Like, we have had customer service systems where we failed. Like, I was one person doing customer service for 3 years. Like, I missed a lot of things. Now we have a whole team that is doing that, and it's improving it greatly, and it's something that we're able to invest in. Giving yourself space and giving yourself financial space, that's one of the hardest things to do, right? Because you can't give yourself too much space. You need to stay committed to your backers, and that part of that customer service is monthly communication. We hit monthly updates every month, and you have to do that if you're a crowdfunder. You will lose all credibility if you start missing a month here and there. You have to do every month. Even if the update is, I don't have much to say, this is what's been happening, it's just been emails, so I can't show you anything, but just know that things are in production, or things are almost in production. You gotta update monthly. Okay, those are the update monthly, and care about your backers is 1. Give yourself some grace and be prepared to have financial things that you aren't expecting, and decide who you are. Those are the 3 things.
That's amazing. What great insights from a publisher that is widely known now, with both Moonrakers, Brink, Moon Rollers, all sorts of amazing games. Austin, thank you for all of those insights and knowing about Brink. I'm really excited for that to be coming out. And as of right now, when you guys are listening, Brink is on Kickstarter, right? Live on Kickstarter right now. So feel free to go over. We will have a link here in the top of the description. So if you're interested in anything you just heard, go over there. But let's talk about something, maybe outside the board game industry. We're going to go into the section we like to call the Beyond.
I missed the cue.
There you go. I think I have a little bit of a hot take here, so I'm gonna just start really briefly.
Go for it.
And I just recently watched at Origins with the team. I watched Mad Max Furiosa, and I love Mad Max, the whole series, everything about it. And I left the theater feeling very meh. I thought that movie was just the CGI effects in some places were fine, but in other places were very tacky to me, and it was just like it kind of ruined my experience a little bit in some of the scenes. The battle scenes were amazing. I mean, Mad Max battle scenes have always been great, and I loved that, but it just, some of the acting in the beginning of the movie really kind of put me to sleep, and I was like, man, I was hoping to pick it up, and they did pick up. It was a very long stretch in the beginning where it was too silent, and then it picked up, which I appreciate, but it was just not the experience I was expecting going in to that movie. So I thought it was okay, but it's definitely not my favorite. I liked Fury Road a lot better.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had kind of the opposite reaction. Fury Road I loved, but I never cared about any of the characters. I'm like, oh, darn, the car got destroyed. Who cares about the people? But in Furiosa, there's all this story, which is unheard of for a Mad Max movie. What do you mean story and character development? That just doesn't happen in Mad Max.
Right.
So I appreciated that quite a bit. Now, do I think the movie should have been shorter? Sure.
Yeah.
They could have cut out 20, 30 minutes easy. But I liked it more than you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for my Beyond, I'm going to prove once again that I am only 12. So I have a good friend. His name is Fong, who I've known since my tech days. We've been friends for over, 20 years now. So he sent me a late birthday present, and it's a YOLO Park Transformer toy Optimus Prime.
Ooh.
And you have to assemble it, die cast and plastic. Now, it doesn't transform, but it is 100% accurate to the old original cartoon. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it here, but it is so well done.
Oh, that's super
you
cool.
get to assemble it like you do a Lego or something,
Yeah.
and it is fully articulate and all the different poses you can do. If it comes with a stand, so you can do aerial poses and fights and whatever, but all kinds of gear and weapons and accessories for it. He's even got his little communicator in his arm that flips up.
Oh,
cool.
What a good
so
friend.
cool, but it's so accurate to the cartoon from the original cartoon. Just looks fantastic. Even has the in his chest plate, it even has the powerful Transformers. Why can't I think of the name? Oh, so bad. So
we'll put it in the video.
It's not a Spark, is it?
Spark, yeah, the Spark, right? So he's got the Spark.
Way to go, Austin.
Yeah,
All right, knowledge.
So, but yeah, I was just really impressed, and it was just such a unexpected thing. And Fong's just a big thanks, Fong. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
So, yeah, very cool.
All right, so my outside Beyond, is going to be the TV show Shogun. I'm a little behind the times on this. I'm on episode 9 out of 10.
Nice.
But I really have enjoyed that show. I think that the acting has been incredible. The story is very, very interesting. There's a lot of depth to the stratagem that the characters are trying to play out across this battle for control of like the heir of the leadership of Japan.
And it's beautifully shot as well.
Beautifully shot, really well acted, really cool story. It's in Japanese, so you're doing subtitles. You could have it dubbed, but I prefer listening to the Japanese.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And I really found it to be really interesting, and I like the idea. I don't think we'll make a Japanese game necessarily, but like it does inspire me from like a game development standpoint, because I think it's a very cool world to tell a story in. I just think that there's plenty of other people probably better equipped either historically or ethnically to make that game. But it's a really cool world to play in, and I know there's a lot of Japanese kind of style battle for the Shogun type games, but really, really cool story.
Yeah,
that's on my list.
I've enjoyed it as well. It's really good.
Yeah, it's one of my list shows that I've been really excited for. But with that one, because I have to read the subtitles, I very much can't be working. I'm usually watching and working, so I have to watch.
Can't be multitasking.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it's on my list to try and get to when I'm able to have those free moments. But
that's such a good point. Like I watch a lot of shows while I'm shooting B-roll at the table that I'm like half paying attention to. I had started that with that show, but then after the first episode, I want to sit and engage with this show.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. This has been a great episode. We're going to end it here. And of course, if you liked what you heard and you want to learn more about our other shows, feel free to subscribe here on YouTube. Click that notification button to know when we go live or anything else. Follow our show on social media at Roll and Reflect and at Roll and Reflect Podcast. And of course, special shout outs to Laura for the timestamps and Austin for being here, our awesome host. And of course, again, Brink is currently live on Kickstarter. Go ahead and visit the link down below. And until next time, I'm Devon.
I'm Mark. We'll see you at the table.
And I'm Austin.
We'll see you guys later.
Bye.